I used to live here. Not here, but here on stage. It was kind of like my second home. And admittedly, I have not been around for a long while. But, back in the day, I was on stage after stage all across this country. In every one of those places, they were all rather different. But, if you take a step back and you look at them collectively, they were all pretty much the same as well. But admittedly, as I said before, I haven't been on any stage for a long time. I mean, to be honest, this is the first opportunity that I've had to be in front of a live audience in nearly 7 years. And I thought the best thing to do is tell you folks a little bit about where I've been, why I'm back. But probably the best way to begin is to tell you a little bit about how I got here in the first place. If we go back to those very earliest days and the very first stages I was ever on, back then folks would have referred to me as a magician. And when people find out that you're a magician, they often ask a question. And it's always the same question. They always ask, how did you get started? And I got to tell you, I've always felt that was the wrong question. I mean, think about it. As I mentioned, I've been back and forth across this country a bunch of times. I've talked to tons of people, and the overwhelming vast majority of them at some point had some kind of passing interest in magic. They really did. Maybe they got a magic kit for a gift when they were very young. Maybe someone taught them a couple of card tricks. Maybe some of the cooler kids may have read some type of Houdini biography when they were back in school. So it is funny, when you talk to people, you find out that the overwhelming vast majority of folks at some point in their lives had some kind of passing interest in magic. So when people ask, how did you get started? That's the wrong question. I think the right question would be, why the hell didn't you stop like the rest of us? That's the question. Well, I'll be honest with you. I think there are a lot of reasons why I didn't stop, and they range from the very early days straight up to tonight, to be honest. But if we want to focus on those early days, I think one of the first reasons why I didn't stop was when I was 4 years old, my mother showed me a card trick. Now, you guys have no idea just how surreal that statement is, and that's because you didn't know my mother. But she obviously didn't have any interest in cards or in magic, and certainly not in being any kind of performer. But for some reason, she knew one card trick. And when I was 4 years old, she showed that trick to me, and it blew my mind. And then on my 5th birthday, I blew my mother's mind. Now, I guarantee some folks out there are thinking, this guy's memory so good that he knows something happened exactly on his 5th birthday. Well, to be honest with you, I think I'm pretty clear on this one because I know for a fact it was the same day that I got my very first Beatles 45. Yeah. Now, it's funny. I do see some perplexed looks out there. One or two of you may be saying, what's a 45? Okay, maybe one or two of you are saying, what's a Beatle? But whatever. But in reality, I'm going to tell you, there are going to be some references in tonight's show that some of you just may not be familiar with. And I get that. That's cool. So here's my suggestion. If you're curious about those things, as we move forward, when we finish up the night, that's all you got to do is, when you get out of here, maybe just grab an encyclopedia and you can read up on those things. So, there's that perplexed look again. See, an encyclopedia, it's kind of like the internet, except it has reliable answers. Okay, that's the only difference. But anyway, here's basically it. If we get back to our story. When I was 4 years old, my mother showed me a card trick, and it blew my mind. And then on my 5th birthday, I blew my mother's mind because that was the day that I did that very same card trick for my cousin J.D. Now, my mother, she was standing across the room. She watched me do the trick. And when I was done, she walked over and she said, I got to ask you something. How did you do that? Now, typically, when someone asks a magician, how did you do that? What they're asking is, what's the trick? What's the secret? Well, she knew the trick. She knew the secret. She's the one who did that card trick for me. What she was asking was, how did you know how to do that? Because even though she did the trick for me, she never taught me how to do it. So I told her. I sat down and I figured it out. Now, I got to tell you, when I first saw that trick, I needed to know how it worked. Okay, when I say I needed to know how it worked, I wasn't one of those bratty kids who needed to know everything. You know the bratty kids I'm talking about. They're the ones who turn into those real pain in the ass adults. Yeah, I'm not talking about that. But basically, I needed to know how that trick worked because when I first saw it, it gave me an amazing feeling. And I wanted to be able to conjure up that feeling again and again. And I thought, well, the only way to do that is to know how to do the trick. So I sat down and figured out how to do it. And I would do that trick for myself, and I would get that amazing feeling. Then after a very short while, I thought, wow, what if I could do this for other people and give them that same feeling? So then I started doing magic for other people. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't stop, because, a lot of magicians that I've talked to through the years, they like to fool people. I get that, but that's not really what my motivation has ever been. And a lot of them like to be in front of audiences and get attention, and that's never really been the way that I feel either. I just always wanted to give people that amazing feeling. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't stop. And if you want another reason why I didn't stop, about a year later, I went across the street from my house to the Swissvale Public Library, and I found something called The Amateur Magician's Handbook by Henry Hay. And that book changed my life in so many ways. But I got to tell you, when I first opened it up and I saw these beautiful glossy photos inside that gorgeous hardbound book, everything changed. Because those photos taught the reader how to do magic with incredibly human objects, everyday things. You could do things with playing cards. You could do incredible magic with coins. You could do incredible magic with little wooden billiard balls. You could do magic with thimbles. I mean, there's even an entire chapter, you could do magic with cigarettes, of all things. Can you imagine that, doing magic with cigarettes? And so that was wonderful for me. I learned how to do all of those different things. And then when I could go to people's houses, I could just pick up a deck of cards and do something for them, and they would get that amazing feeling. I could pick up a coin and do something for them, and they would get that amazing feeling. I could literally pick up some cigarettes, and I could do something for them, and they would get that amazing feeling. With cigarettes, that's so bizarre to me. But you know what? It's kind of funny. That's when people started to call me a magician. And I will tell you that once people know you to be a magician, they never really see you the same way again. And I'll give you a brief story about that. At one point, my mother had some shopping to do. So she walked up to the Union Drugstore up on Monongahela Avenue. And she gathered all the things she needed, went over to the counter and set everything down. And right before she paid for it, she said, "Oh, I know what I forgot. I also need a pack of Lucky Strike cigarettes." And the pharmacist said, "But Mrs. Ma, you don't smoke." And she said, "Oh, they're not for me. They're for my 7-year-old. Well, I will tell you, when people know that you're a magician, they never see you the same way again. That pharmacist never saw me the same way after that moment, I'll be honest. But I think the other thing about that book that I had mentioned, The Amateur Magician's Handbook, here's really what made the difference for me. You got to realize, we're talking, this was 1966. Now, for just a minute, I'm going to be that really old guy, as if I could be anything else. But I'm going to be that really old guy. Back in 1966, we didn't have the internet. We didn't even have cable television. I mean, I'll be that stereotypical old guy really bad now. We only had 3 TV channels, and all 3 of those stations went off the air like around 1 o'clock in the morning. So what I'm saying is, we didn't have access like people do today. And what that meant was I didn't have access to magic, magicians, or anything like that. So I would literally go for months after month after month after month without ever seeing anything related to magic. It might go well over a year. I'd never see anything related to magic. But I could open up that book, The Amateur Magician's Handbook. I could look at those photographs in sequence, and I could sit down and I could imagine an entire magic show in my mind. And that's the magic shows that I used to watch. And that really made a difference for me, because that's when I started to truly understand the power of creativity and of imagination. And that really changed my life, because then I started to be creative in other areas. I started to learn how to use a camera and started to dabble in photography. I started to do different types of writing and everything else. And all of that came from those photos in that Amateur Magician's Handbook. And once again, I think that's another reason why I didn't stop. And to be honest with you, it got to the point that now I could do all of this magic. And at first, when I was doing it, I would go and I would do some magic for relatives. And then I would do it for friends. And then I would do it for friends of friends. And then came a really big step forward. I started to, upon request, do magic for strangers. And then for larger groups of strangers. And then eventually I stopped just doing magic tricks and I had to create magic shows. And those shows became local, then regional, then larger. And I was working on different stages. I was able to start working at universities. I was doing all types of corporate seminars and corporate events and private affairs. And okay, admittedly, I did my share of shitholes as well. But those are for another night. But it was great. It was an amazing life. And I was very fortunate to be able to go around and do all of that stuff. But I will tell you, all of that came to a very abrupt end on November 30th, 1996, because that was the night that my family and I were hit head on by a drunk driver. The injuries that I sustained in that crash, they changed everything about my life in an instant. Specifically, the severe head trauma and neck trauma. And it was instantly noticed that my brain would never again function the way that it once did. And that severe injury set off an avalanche of problems through my system. And because of that, my heart no longer functions the way that it once did. And my kidneys no longer function the way that they once did. And my esophagus completely shut down. It no longer functions the way that it once did. My hands, for Christ's sake. My hands were my greatest tools. They were everything to me. And because of the nerve damage, I lost all of that in an instant. Now my hands are numb, and they tingle, and they shake. And in spite of all of that numbness, there's a deep, heavy ache that runs through each and every joint. Even my hands no longer function the way that they once did. But I got to tell you, I still have 2 relatively healthy middle fingers. And I take those middle fingers and I hold them up in the face of all of the medical issues and that defiance. That's the real reason why we're here tonight. Because, for the first 2.5 to 3 years following that car crash, I had no life. My comprehension skills were completely destroyed. My memory was completely destroyed. My motor skills and dexterity completely destroyed. And I worked with doctor after doctor, hospital after hospital, and nothing ever seemed to make anything any better. But there was one doctor, she saved my life. Her name was Dr. Carol Schramke. And I will tell you, she was the one that brought me back to life. There's no question about it. And she was the person who was dealing with the situations with my comprehension and memory skills. And more than anything else, what she was able to get me to understand was that I needed to embrace the person that I am, and I needed to stop longing for the person that I once was. And as soon as she got that into my head, everything else started to work a little bit better. Now, I'm not saying I could ever get back to where I once was, but life was pretty good because I now had some passion again. She was the one that introduced me to my creativity again. I would say reintroduced me, but I couldn't remember it. So she introduced me to creativity. She introduced me to the passions that I once had. She was the one that got me to start doing things again. And eventually I started to do a little bit of magic again. Now, I couldn't do the things that I used to do because I didn't have the same skills, but I was able to go out and figure out new things that I could do, and everything was a part of my therapy. And eventually, over a long period of time, I actually went out and I did a couple of shows. And I'm not talking about going out on the road and earning a living like I used to. Those days were long gone, but I'm talking about just going out, part of my therapy, and sharing passion once again, trying to give people that feeling. And so I started doing a little bit here, a little bit there, and like maybe every 6 or 7 months, maybe every year or so, I could go out and do a couple of events, and they were tough to do, but man, it was so unbelievably fulfilling. And that all came from Dr. Schramke. Here's the ironic part of all of that. If she walked in this room right now, I wouldn't recognize her. I have absolutely no memory of ever having any of the sessions with her. I have no memory of ever talking with her. I don't even remember ever meeting her. I don't even know what she looks like. And yet I know that she's probably one of the most important people of my life. And I will never, ever, ever be able to thank her for everything she did. But I will say, once I started doing all those things again, I came to a personal realization. And that personal realization was this. You can take the performer from the road, but you can't take the road from the performer, because that's in here. And so tonight, with all of you wonderful folks, this is the next step on my road. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for taking this part of the journey with me. Now, with all of that said, it's time for us to move along to the next section. But I think before we do that, there is one other thing you guys need to know, and that is that tonight's performance is not a solo performance, not in any way, shape, or form. There are actually three main characters in this play. Now, you've already met the first character, that's me. In just a few moments, I will introduce you to the next character. And then a little bit down the way, he will introduce you to the third character. So I guess it's time to bring out my partner. And what can I say about this guy? Well, we traveled the road together for a very long time. And when we were out on that road, I was the guy who took care of all of the logistics. You know, I was the guy that had to book all of the airline tickets. I was the guy who booked all of the hotel rooms. I was the guy who booked all of the car rentals. Hell, I was the guy who drove the car. I dealt with every producer and every promoter along the way. But all of the material that was going to be performed on stage, yeah, that was me too. I was the one who wrote and created every single bit of it. However, it was my partner, the guy who wears that jacket. Well, he's the one that night after night got to stand under the lights. He's the one that faced each and every audience. He's the one that got every bit of the applause. Now, don't assume that I'm jealous, because I'm certainly not. You know, we both had a job to do, and we were both very content with the roles that we had to play. But I will say this. There's one very intriguing aspect to our relationship, at least intriguing to me. And that is, you know, I know everything there is to know about that guy. And in spite of the fact that I know every little detail about his life, I don't think he even realizes that I exist. But then again, with him having all of this, why would he need me? So, with that said, it's time for you guys to meet my partner. What that means is I will be seeing all of you in about 25 minutes. As for my partner, you guys will be seeing him in about 45 seconds. Now, you know what? One last thing I should probably mention. You know, when it comes to all of this medical stuff that I was talking about, it's the thing, you know, that those problems, those are the things that have kept me off the stage. Those are the things that have kept me away from all of these types of events. Those are the things that have kept me home for a long, long time. And because of that, man, I'm really out of practice. I'm really out of shape. And to be honest with you, when I try to do anything like this, I know for a fact I am extremely rusty. The thing is, all of that applies to my partner as well. But he doesn't realize any of that crap. So if you wouldn't mind, when he comes out here, be real nice to him, okay?
Товарищи, я пришел не с прошлого, чтобы сообщить вам страшную тайну, о которой молчали все эти годы. Стали известны подробности секретных материалов советской больницы. В ней лечили сверхъестественные недуги.
Please welcome Rick Monk.
Greetings. I would like to thank each and every one of you for making the decision to spend some time with us this evening. Decisions. You know, the average adult sleeps 8 hours every night. That leaves a total of 16 waking hours for each one of us every single day. And scientists estimate that we make some sort of conscious decision approximately every 3.2 seconds. And by conscious decision, they mean something we actually have to stop and think about. But yeah, they say that we make one of those decisions approximately every 3.2 seconds. What that means is each one of us makes in excess of 16,700 decisions every day. And some of those are rather important. The rest are pretty insignificant. Or are they? Sir, heads or tails? Heads? Interesting. You know, I'm pretty intrigued with decisions. And to be honest with you, I'm intrigued with things like how outside circumstances are able to affect even the simplest choices that we make. I'm intrigued with how we really stress over the things that are the simplest choices of our lives. I've always been intrigued with this stuff. But I don't think I'm the only person that's interested in it. I'll tell you why. Because just a few moments ago, I had this nice gentleman right here make a decision. It was a simple coin toss, heads or tails, 50-50. There was no reward for getting it right, and there were certainly no consequences for getting it wrong. And yet you could feel that there was a sense of anticipation as he made his choice, and there was an even greater sense of disappointment when I failed to say whether he was correct or not. Now, don't assume that I mean he was the only one who was disappointed, because if we are honest with ourselves, this was a completely meaningless coin toss. Once again, if we're honest with ourselves, each one of us wanted to know the outcome. Right? You know what? I got to stop there for just a minute. Man, I need to apologize to you. I asked if you'd do me a favor. You graciously did it, and then I rudely turned and walked away from you and ignored you completely. I didn't do that to make you the butt of the joke. I didn't do it to get a cheap laugh. I didn't do it for any of those reasons. I did it simply because I wanted to illustrate the point that even though it was a meaningless coin toss, everybody here wanted to know the outcome. And the only way I can show them that they wanted to know the outcome was not telling anybody what the outcome is. So I apologize. I promise I won't be rude like that to anybody the rest of the night, and I hope you can accept my apology. And by the way, your choice was completely correct, so nicely done, my friend. So, now with all of that said, I'm going to have another one of you folks make a decision again in just a few moments. And since we are already comfortable with the idea of heads or tails, we'll stick with that. And as before, if the correct choice is made, there is still going to be no reward. But this time, if an incorrect choice is made, somebody in this room will be severely injured or possibly killed. Now, with so much riding on this, I need somebody that's intelligent, somebody that's intuitive, and somebody I know that I can truly trust. And that's why I'm going to have you make the decision for me. Now, before you get apprehensive, I need you to understand a few things. First and foremost, you can stay right there at your chair, okay? The next thing you need to know is if everything goes 100% according to plan, if everything goes perfectly well, you get 100% of the credit. If anything were to go wrong in any way, shape, or form, if anything were to go awry, I will take 100% of the blame. You know, I've been saying those words for years, and I just realized for the first time that's the exact same agreement I have at home with my wife. Anyway, I digress. But once again, if everything goes correct, you get all the credit. If anything goes wrong, I'll take all of the blame. Is that fair enough? Sure. Fantastic. Now, I am going to have you call heads or tails. But I don't want to use the coin this time, because I don't want you to think there's some way that I can manipulate the toss. Instead, I want us to be locked into our decisions. And so that's why we're going to use that small envelope that you see right there. That envelope actually contains two things. The first thing it contains is a red poker chip. Now, that red poker chip has no bearing on what we're doing right now, but it will be important later on when we do another demonstration. So once you get it in your possession, I'm going to ask you to take it, hold on to it, and keep it safe. Make sure you know where it is so that when we need it later, you'll be able to retrieve it. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Sounds good. But I said there are two things in that envelope, and that's because the second thing is a piece of paper. It's a folded piece of paper. And printed on the inside of that folded piece of paper is one word and one word only. And that word is either heads or tails. Now, I don't want you to merely choose your favorite. I want you to really, right now in your mind, try to envision a blank piece of paper. Slowly, one of those words is now going to come forward and print itself on that blank piece of paper that you see in your imagination. Tell everybody right now, we're just going to relax, take a breath. Tell everybody what word you see.
Heads.
You see heads? I'm going to take the coin and place it right here, heads side up. It'll act not only as a reminder, but hopefully also as a bit of a good luck charm, because we're looking for the word heads. Do me a favor, look inside there, verify there is indeed a poker chip in a piece of paper.
Yep.
Take the envelope from me. Take the whole thing from me. Here's what I want you to do. Remove that poker chip, but leave the piece of paper where it is for right now.
Okay.
Take the poker chip, make sure you have that someplace safe. Okay? Now, as I mentioned before, if the correct choice is made, there's no reward. However, if an incorrect choice is made,
You take it.
we do have, yes, but we do have some consequences to deal with. So before you remove that piece of paper, give me just a few moments to prepare those consequences, okay?
Oh, jeez.
No way.
Now, we're looking for the word heads.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
What I want you to do is, you can tear the envelope open, make it easier for you. Just tear it open,
Okay.
take out that piece of paper, unfold it, show it to the person to your left and to the person to your right, and then very honestly, in a loud voice, tell everybody what is written there. We're looking for the word heads.
Okay. Cece, you're gonna live.
And what's it say?
It says heads.
It says
You're gonna
heads.
live.
Now, I will say this. When I first asked if you would help me, I didn't want to break your concentration and have you tell everybody your first name. So right now, could you tell everybody in a loud voice, what is your first name?
Kathy.
Kathy?
Yeah.
Kathy, I would like to ask all of these nice people to help me to thank you for not killing me this evening. Kathy, ladies and gentlemen. I can give her the scraps for it if you want.
Give me my picture.
Hold on to that.
Yeah.
You can hold on to that.
All right.
Now, I will tell you, I open all of my performances with this specific demonstration. And there are a couple of reasons why. The first reason is when you get a chance to be in front of a group of audience or a group of folks in a nice audience like all of you guys, you want to do something that actually gets you into the moment. And I'll tell you, this can be rather nerve-wracking for me. And so I have found that this is a very good way for me to get the blood flow. Well, not the blood flowing, but the blood flowing, if you know what I mean. And so that helps me to get into the performance. But that's not the real reason why I use this. The real reason I use it is it helps to illustrate a point about the show that you are about to see. And that is basically this. Tonight's performance is not a solo performance, not in any way, shape, or form. There are actually two main characters in this play. I am the first character, and all of you are the second character. The only way that I can be successful tonight is if I help to make each and every one of you successful along the way, because this is a partnership. So here's what I propose. I say that we partner up. I say that we work together. And if we do that, then possibly we will be amazed once or twice. We might have a couple of laughs, and who knows, we might even learn something about ourselves. So if that sounds good to you guys, I say we move forward. What do you guys say?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that then. Now, here's the thing. I've traveled this country for a long time as what a lot of folks would call a mentalist. Well, what's a mentalist? Well, I'll be honest with you, it's really tough to describe what a mentalist is. So let me tell you a few things that a mentalist may do. A mentalist may pretend to read your thoughts. A mentalist may make believe that they can predict the future. A mentalist may annoyingly mutilate your cutlery. You know, they do all kinds of strange things. And to be honest with you, even though I've dabbled in a number of different areas, the place that I settled was trying to focus on being able to control the thoughts, the decisions, and even the physical actions of others. Now, instead of just talking about it, how about if I show you? Red or blue?
Red.
Red? Okay, we will use red. You know what? Open up the blue ones for me, too. We'll use those, but we'll use these because that's the ones you want. Do me a favor. At some point, just say stop.
Stop.
Okay? Feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, here's what I want you to understand. In reality, you could have had any of these cards. For some reason, you chose to discard them. There's the 2, the king, another 2, a 5, a 4, a 6, a jack, 3, a 9, 5, an 8, the 10, the 7, and a king. You could have any one of those, but you decided you wanted to stop right there. Had you continued just a little bit farther, the 3, the queen, the 4, the 9, you could add any one of those as well. So, in essence, for some reason, you opted to stop right there. Before we finish this up, I'm going to ask you a question. Now, we are currently in the context of a show, a performance. I want you to take yourself out of that setting for just a moment. Put yourself in your real world, okay? In the real world, and be completely honest with me, okay? Do you really think it's possible in the real world for a guy to come up to you, a complete stranger, and without ever saying one single word, do you think it's possible for that person that you've never met before to truly control your thoughts, your decisions, and even your physical actions? I mean, without ever saying one word, do you really think that's possible?
No.
Okay. Let me ask you one other question. That pen that you're currently holding, did I ever ask you or tell you or say one single word to get you to take it from me?
I don't think so.
Did I ask for this back? Okay, that's my point. The point of this is each and every one of us, we're able to control the thoughts, the decisions, and actions of people around us every single day. We always do it. We do it constantly. I just do it maybe a little bit more, let's say, hyperbolically. I'll give you an idea of what that means. I had 2 decks of cards. I said, which deck do you want to use? You said red. I said, great, we'll use the red deck. And I gave you the blue deck so that you could open them up, and we'll use that as well, but we'll use the red deck that you wanted to use. I went through that red deck, and I looked and looked and looked until I found a card that I thought, I'm going to see if I can get you to stop on that card. I closed up the pack, put it down. I took your blue deck, went through, took out one card. Before we did anything else with the red deck, I took that blue card, put it on the table, got rid of the rest of the blue deck. I picked up the red deck, and I said, just say stop anytime you wanted. You stopped me where you wanted to stop. I then put the rest of the pack down. I showed you all of the cards you discarded. I cleanly took the card from the top of the pack and placed it right there. I showed you the next 5 or 6 cards you could have had you gone deeper into the deck. The card that I wanted you to stop on was the 2 of Hearts. The card you stopped on was the 2 of Hearts. Now, I want to do something that I literally have never done before, just because I thought it would be fun to try something completely different. And so I don't really have a specific way to present this or anything else. I thought we would just have a little bit of fun with something. And I'm not going to finish this up. I'm going to kind of start it now, and we'll finish it later on this evening. How's that sound? So, in essence, I know that I have a tendency to use a lot of poker chips. I always do, because poker chips to me are pretty fascinating things. These little pieces of plastic or sometimes clay, they mean so many things to so many different people. You know, they mean the idea of chance or gambling. They mean fortune. They mean loss. They could mean a lot of different things. And so people get very emotional about poker chips, so I've used them for a long time. But one of the things that I discovered when I started to use them in performance, especially under bright lights like this, when you put them into envelopes and that kind of thing, you can see through and you can see what's there. And so when you use different colored poker chips, sometimes that's a problem. That said, my wife came up with a brilliant solution. Wrap them in aluminum foil. And if you wrap them in aluminum foil, guess what? No matter what you do, you can't see through them. Makes life so much better. So what we're going to do is just a weird little game here. We'll put this here. We'll put this here. And we'll put this here. And like I said, we're just going to play around with this now, but then we'll come back to it later. What I'd like to do is I want to eliminate 5 of these and leave only 1 behind. So if we say this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5, which one would you like me to eliminate? Whichever one. Number 5, this one way over here?
Mm-hmm.
So get rid of a couple of them right now. And that's just a green poker chip. I'll tell you what, let's get rid of 1 more. Which one would you like to get rid of? We have number 1, 2, 3, and 4 left.
Number 3.
Number 3? Fantastic. We'll get rid of that one as well. We'll see what we have there. That's a black poker chip. We'll get back to this in just a little while. In the meantime, I want to talk about something that I think is really, really interesting. All these strange demonstrations that I've done for an awful long time, I've learned something about them. The most important aspect to any of them is this. Most important aspect is to relax. Think about being relaxed. I'm going to bet that every single one of you here has a specific chair in your home that you sit in more often than any other place. Every one of us does, right? Here's what I want every one of you to do right now. Put yourself in that chair and just start to relax. Just kick back, put your feet up, and relax. Now, I know for a fact that whenever I sit in my favorite chair, traditionally what I do is I read a book. That's my way of relaxing. That's what I always do. If you were going to relax in your favorite chair right now, what might you do to relax? You'd go through Twitter? Okay. So basically you'd be looking like at a screen, basically, just going through a screen, no matter what type of device. So you'd actually see a screen is what you would see. If you were to relax in your favorite chair right now, just kicking back, what might you do to relax?
I'd first ask my wife to get on my favorite chair.
That's a wonderful answer, my friend. And to be honest with you, I hope she doesn't. I'm on her side.
I'd sit outside.
You'd sit outside.
Enjoy some nature.
Okay, so you would see nature.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful answer. I love that answer. I love that answer. If you were going to sit in your favorite chair right now, what might you do to relax?
Probably watching sports on TV.
So you'd watch like you'd see a TV then. So no, we all see different things. Like I will tell you the truth. I was doing this specific demonstration in Chicago a number of years ago, and I said, you're sitting in your room, your favorite chair, and I've never been there. I don't know what's there. So you tell me, you're relaxing. What do you see around your room? And the guy said, I see my autographed photo of Justin Bieber. And I didn't judge until now, but it's amazing the things we see. So if you were in your favorite chair, we know what we've all seen. What would you see in your favorite chair?
TV.
Something other than that. Anything else?
The wall.
The wall. That's a great answer because you know what? I spend a lot of time literally contemplating and looking across the room in silence. That's a great answer. I like that a lot. If you were in your favorite chair, what might you see right now?
Travel shows.
Travel.
Yeah.
So you would say, okay, what do we want to call that? Want to say like nations? You might see other nations. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How's that for a good answer?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Now, I'm going to tell you something. What I'm about to do is the toughest part of the night for me because I have a very difficult time with my memory. Don't help me unless I ask for help because this is where I like to kind of test myself. But let's try to use the different things that you folks see in your favorite